Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session, Kickstarting Your Cybersecurity Career, a Roadmap to Success. I am Reenal Vekeria and I'll be your host for today. Before we get started, we would like to go over a few house rules. For our attendees, the session will be in listen-only mode and will last for an hour, out of which the last 15 minutes will be dedicated to question and answers. So now about our speaker, Andrew Jarrett. AJ has over 15 years of experience in technology, cybersecurity, and incident response in both the public and private sectors. Prior to joining DTCC, AJ launched and led multiple cybersecurity programs in highly regulated environments, including defense and finance. In addition to his work at DTCC, AJ is also an adjunct instructor with the Applied Cybersecurity program at Texas A&M Engineering Extension Service and a volunteer advisor for multiple high school and college career technology education programs. So without any further delay, I would now hand over the session to you, AJ.
All right. Thank you very much, Rinal, and everyone who helped get this going and arrange all the logistics. I'm very excited to be here, and I see we got a bunch of attendees. So I'm very excited to talk to everyone today about a really exciting topic, which is cybersecurity and your career, how to chart a roadmap for success here. Let's dive right in. So as we talked about, I am the Director of Cyber Monitoring and Incident Response at DTCC. I've got about over 15 years of experience. I think I'm up to like 17 now in IT and cybersecurity. I am actually an IT person turned cybersecurity person. So I transitioned from IT infrastructure into cybersecurity several years ago and have kind of worked my way up the ranks. I've worked with a ton of folks with all kinds of different backgrounds, and I've worked in a number of industries, as we previously mentioned. So what we're going to talk about today is, kind of what I've learned along the way, and how different folks can get into this career field, because it is a very rewarding and very exciting career field. Real quick, key takeaways. We're going to talk about some of the opportunities that a cybersecurity career can offer. We're going to talk about some junior cyber roles that you can look for and that you can target in your job searches and what those qualifications are for those roles. We're going to talk about how you can showcase your cybersecurity skill sets as well as other competencies that are related. So not just cybersecurity, but other things that hiring managers are looking for. And then we're going to talk specifically about what hiring managers like me are looking for that set you apart as an applicant when you show up in our applicant pools. And then after that, we're going to have some Q&A. So I hope that you have some good questions ready to go. I'm excited to answer them as much as time allows. And yeah, let's dive right in. So the first thing I hear whenever I talk to someone who doesn't have a technical background who wants to break into cybersecurity is they say, I can't get a cyber job because I don't know how to code. This is the biggest myth in cybersecurity, that you need a certain skill set in order to be able to break into this industry. And the fact of the matter is, this is a myth. Although a cyber background or a technical background is helpful, it can certainly help you break in and get going a lot faster. At the same time, there's all kinds of backgrounds and different competencies that can help you be successful in cybersecurity, and you don't have to have a specific skill set to break in. So this is a myth that I want to put to bed. Like I said, it certainly helps to have a technical background, but it's not absolutely necessary. Now you're going to have to temper your expectations. We're going to talk about the different areas of cybersecurity and what is available in terms of what is available in terms of jobs and things like that. You're not going to be able to be completely non-technical and then go into a highly technical track in cybersecurity. 0 to 100, there's going to be some learning that has to occur along the way. At the same time, just because you don't know how to program, or you don't know a lot about networking, or you don't know a lot about technology in general, doesn't mean that this is impossible. It just means you may have to do some additional work. One of the things that I love about cybersecurity as a career field is the fact that it is a fairly, I say immature, but it's a young career field, and young in the sense that it's not well established. I tell people all the time, how do you become an accountant? Well, you go to college, you major in accounting, you graduate with an accounting degree, you take the CPA exam, congratulations, you're an accountant. Cybersecurity is not like that. There are so many different areas within cybersecurity that you can go into that are really exciting and allow you to align yourself with your strengths, and you can chart your own path. There's no one path that fits all. You will be able to find your own and find your niche. And that is what makes cybersecurity an incredibly rewarding experience. There's also a lot of stuff that is fairly new. You may even have the opportunity to create a new specialty or expand the knowledge base of cybersecurity significantly by breaking in at this time. So you can really put your personal touch on the industry, which is very exciting and really great because the industry is growing and continuing to evolve so much. So enough of my soapbox, let's get to the nuts and bolts. So there are several major areas within cybersecurity. When I say cybersecurity, it is a broad field, like I said. There's a bunch of different opportunities. There's a bunch of different areas that you can specialize in. This is sort of a generalization that I came up with. It is by no means an exhaustive list of all the things you could do within cybersecurity, but these are kind of the large buckets. So you have cybersecurity operations. That's your security operations center, so your SOC. That's the teams that monitor the environment. They respond to cyber incidents. They stop the hackers. They're putting defensive controls in place, stuff like that. You also have your engineering teams. They're typically designing and implementing technologies to protect our environments from hackers and enable that cyber operations team. So this is more of a traditional IT role, but focused specifically on cybersecurity tools, things of that nature. Governance, risk, and compliance, or GRC. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later, but that's an important term. These are teams that ensure that the controls and processes that an organization has in place are adequate. So, they're not responsible for monitoring the environment for attackers, but they're responsible for working with those operations and engineering teams to say, hey, what controls, processes do we have in place? Do they actually work? Are we verifying that? How are we verifying that? Things like that to make sure that the program has what it needs to be successful. Awareness and education, individuals who train other employees or the general public about cybersecurity. There's a lot of opportunities there. Most large organizations are going to have an awareness and education group who are responsible for like that cybersecurity compliance training that everyone has to take, and making sure that everyone takes that, making sure that that curriculum's up to date. They may do phishing simulations and things like that to give employees and webinars and reminders along the way throughout the year, just to keep employees aware of cybersecurity. What are the company policies around it? What should you do? And that nature. But there's also opportunities through organizations like EC Council and stuff like that to teach classes. As you start to get some experience in cybersecurity, you could teach others, which is very rewarding. Reporting and metrics, similar to that governance, risk, and compliance team, they track and report often cyber risk to like senior leadership within the organization. So they're looking at the metrics generated by the GRC team, the operations team, the engineering team. They're saying, hey, this is how many cases that the SOC had to work last month. This is how many true positive alerts we had. This is how many firewall blocks we had, things like that. Depending on what industry you're in, that requirement to track may be a requirement or a best practice. If you're in a highly regulated environment, it's a requirement, because regulators want to know what's going on from a cyber perspective. Threat intelligence, these are teams that study and monitor hackers to help improve defenses. So they're looking at what are the latest hacking groups doing? What are their tactics and techniques? They're feeding that information to the operations teams, to the engineering teams, to the governance, risk, and compliance team to say, hey, okay, here's what we know about what the bad guys are doing. so that we can then look at our controls in our environment and say, are we protected against this? Do we have what we need to respond if we're targeted by these groups? And then finally, vulnerability researchers, also known as pen testers, teams or individuals who study flaws in systems and software that can be exploited by hackers. There are independent vulnerability researchers, so this is something you can do on your own, or there are groups within organizations that are focused on this. This is kind of your red teaming, penetration testing, application penetration testing, things like that, and vulnerability research in general. So like I said, you can freelance at this, or there are, most large companies also have a team of pen testers that are constantly looking at their apps, constantly looking at their environment and making sure that, we know what's going on. Not listed here, but on top of all this is management. Each of these teams needs levels of management inside of them in order to work. And then these teams typically report up into a chief information security officer, who's a C-level employee who may sit in different places in the organization. They may be part of the senior leadership team. They may report to the chief information officer, the chief risk officer, whatever. But there's often several layers of management that make this happen. And management itself is a separate skill. It's not cybersecurity, and I could probably spend an hour-long session talking just about how to be a manager in cybersecurity and how it is so much different than everything else you needed to be successful. So things to think about. I'm hoping at this stage that those of you listening are starting to think about this and go, oh, okay, hey, there's some places here where maybe I have some skills where this seems interesting, because at no point have I said programming or anything like that. Don't get me wrong, a technical background is important, it's helpful. If you don't have one and you want to break into cybersecurity, there's going to be certain areas that you're going to be limited to start with, and then you're going to have to build those technical skill sets if you want to move into other areas. But there are a variety of areas, and not all of them require that deep technical background. So next topic, technical versus non-technical. Not every position requires technical expertise. So like we talked about, governance, risk, and compliance, probably, it helps if you have some understanding technically of what's going on to make sure that, the information that's being presented to you is, is correct. But, governance, risk, and compliance, GRC, metrics and reporting, awareness, education, and management don't necessarily require a technical background. But although technical expertise is not required, it's definitely helpful. I will say I came from a background as a systems administrator and networking administrator, managing production environments. I knew virtualization and things like that, and then moved into cybersecurity, and it was definitely very helpful. Especially understanding things like networking and stuff like that, because that is, how the attackers attack us, through the network, through it's how they exfiltrate data, is again through the network. So it's useful, but it's not required to break in. So let's talk a little bit about that some more. Now, I want to be very, very cautious, because I don't want you to say, oh, well, AJ, said that, oh, don't worry about it. I don't need to be technical in order to have a cyber career. Correct. If these are the areas that you want to focus in, but if you want to break into any of those other areas, you're going to have to put in the work. Now, there's a lot of different ways to go about doing that, and we're going to talk about those in a minute. But it's very important to understand you don't need a deep technical background to get started. And the most important thing is that you do get started. Don't wait to break in. Find opportunities and go with it. The biggest thing that will help you along the way is just gaining experience. So we'll talk more about that in a minute. Let's talk about some entry-level cybersecurity jobs. So these are by no means an exhaustive list. You can find other lists all over the place, but this is a list of cybersecurity jobs that don't require significant experience. Maybe maybe they might want a little bit of experience. Sometimes they might want a year or two minimum. But oftentimes you can break in with very little experience, maybe a certification, maybe a boot camp, whatever under your belt, and be able to get into some of these. Let's dive in. So SOC analysts, there's typically different levels. I've seen as many as 4, so SOC analyst 1, SOC analyst 2, SOC analyst 3, maybe a SOC lead, things like that. That's that security operations center. So those are the ones that monitor, investigate suspicious activity. Typically SOC analyst 1, you might need a little bit of experience in IT, before you move into this, but I've also seen folks right out of college be successful in these roles. I've seen people transition from like help desk roles into these roles. People who are changing their careers. These are great roles and often don't require a ton of experience. They might require a little bit. The key here is analyst. Another keyword that you want to look for an entry-level job is technician. These are going to be, your least experienced, least qualification jobs. And that's what you want to target when you're first looking to break in. This idea that, oh, you can go straight to a SOC manager, you can make, $150,000 a year. Yes, you can. And in a certain number of years, you got to put in the work though. The other positions, so engineering analyst or engineering technician, again, this is sort of your IT person. They help deploy and maintain that technology that enables the security operations. GRC analysts, so that's, again, going back to that governance, risk, and compliance. They collect that information. They help document those processes. This is one where, again, not a lot of experience required. Typically, you need to know Excel, you need to know PowerPoint, things like that, skills that you can pick up fairly easily. A security researcher or pen tester. So there are opportunities to freelance and become a freelance security researcher. You can find vulnerabilities, you can participate in bug bounty programs and get paid for finding bugs and vulnerabilities and reporting them to other organizations. You need to follow, responsible disclosure and make sure that you're, following all the rules. Otherwise, you risk going into the illegal side of that. But at the same time, it doesn't require any background really to get started. There's no, you must meet these qualifications in order to submit a bug to us. No, you just need to be able to document it. So there's some people who break in this way. I will say that this is the technically hardest way to gain your chops. At the same time, there's a lot of people who really gravitate towards it and like it. Another name for this might be junior pen tester. So being a penetration tester on a security team often doesn't require a formal background. Certifications like CEH certainly help, but at the same time, you don't necessarily have to have a lot of experience in penetration testing to be a good pen tester. You just have to have the right mindset. Cyber intelligence analysts, again, researching hacking groups and threats to the organization. This is another good entry level or junior level role. You can work your way up to a very senior level role in cyber intelligence. At the same time, it's very forgiving for newbies because again, it's a fairly new field, it really has a lot to do with having the correct mindset and being coachable, not so much a ton of experience when you're at that entry level analyst role. Cyber defense analysts, so this focuses on the controls and processes to prevent cyber intrusions, kind of similar to a GRC analyst, but some organizations have a cyber defense team. Again, you're looking at the controls in the environment. You're looking at the standards that we have to meet. You're looking at the threat intelligence that's being provided, and you're saying, hey, do the controls match the threats? And then DevSecOps. DevSecOps integrates security into the software development lifecycle. So a DevSecOps analyst will typically work with the development teams, the programmers and stuff like that to make sure that security is part of the initial planning into the actual design and development of an application as it's being written. This one probably requires some coding experience, at least some scripting experience. Like I said, this one is a little bit technical, but I'm going to say it's entry level because you can teach yourself a lot of these skills. All right, so I hope we're generating lots of questions. I'm looking forward to those at the end, but let's talk a little bit more about key qualifications for junior level roles. The biggest thing for these junior level roles, honestly, is the right mindset. So having a growth mindset, saying, hey, okay, I don't know everything, but I'm willing to learn. And I'm willing to continue to learn. And that is my goal. Having professional curiosity. So, not being happy with the status quo, really being motivated to go out and learn and find information on your own, and having that passion for learning. Those three things are the most important to your success in an entry-level cyber role. Notice I didn't say anything about programming. Truly, the mindset is the most important, because the purpose of an entry-level role is to get you some experience so that you can then advance and become non-entry level and start to work your way up. So, some ways to demonstrate basic understanding of cybersecurity. If you've got some experience, a year or two in a related field, that's great. And I say related, so IT, definitely related. A couple years on the help desk, great opportunity to learn how, systems work, learn a little bit about networking, learn a little bit about, problems that users have, as well as developing that customer service mindset, which will help you a long way. We'll talk about later. An undergraduate degree in cybersecurity is a great way to demonstrate that you understand the basics. And what have you. Do understand that an undergraduate degree in cybersecurity means you understand the basics of cybersecurity, and you're going to now learn, real world application. Professional certifications, another great way to demonstrate, basic competencies. You don't have to do anything specific for these professional certifications. There are resources out there where you can do independent study and just take the tests, and they're fairly inexpensive. EC Council offers a ton. There's a lot out there. Participating in security boot camps, yes, great way again to show basic competencies. You understand cybersecurity at a basic level. Again, a little bit less expensive, definitely less expensive compared to an undergraduate degree. But similar result, and you may come out with a few certifications as well, which is great. At the same time, being engaged in self-driven security projects. This is huge. You don't have to get a degree in cybersecurity in order to demonstrate competency in cybersecurity. There are a number of projects out there, open source projects for sure, lots of security researchers that are looking for volunteers. There are some nonprofit things out there that are doing things like tracking down child predators on the internet and stuff like that. Participating in those types of projects, or even starting your own security project and learning and uploading your code to GitHub and getting getting feedback from the community and everything else, that can demonstrate competency in a big way. But again, a lot of these entry-level jobs don't require one specific credential. Some do. I think that's a mistake though, from a hiring manager standpoint. I think we should make the entry-level jobs entry-level as much as possible. So let's continue right along. Let's talk about some skill sets that can be leveraged to provide cyber success. So these are non-cyber skills that will make you more successful as a cybersecurity professional. Project management is a huge one. Project management is big. If you have any sort of background in project management, you are an asset to any company wherever you go. And if you happen to have project management experience married with a little bit of cybersecurity knowledge, then that makes you an asset to a number of teams on the engineering side, on the operations side especially. Help desk or customer service experience. Help desk is awesome. I cannot advocate enough for start with help desk. You gain customer service skills by being in help desk. You also gain a number of basic troubleshooting and basic technical competencies on help desk. At the same time, if you're not a help desk, but you're in a customer facing role and you're doing some sort of customer service, that's huge, especially working in certain groups. I push customer service skills on my team a lot because we are responsible for monitoring and incident response. So a lot of times teams are reaching out to us when they see something weird, scary, concerning, whatever. And part of what we have to do is not only figure out what's going on and stop the bad guys, it's also, provide feedback to those who are reporting, let them know, hey, everything's under control. Thank you for reporting this. This was good. Providing them that feedback so that we're not a black hole and they feel comfortable talking to us about weird problems that they're concerned about. Another great experience, if you have military or first responder experience, that is huge in the cybersecurity field, especially on the security operations side of the house, but there's others as well. This demonstrates that you have the ability to work in a team. You have the ability to adapt to difficult or unpredictable situations. Things like that. There's a lot of transferable skill sets there. For those of you with a first responder background, if you know anything about the incident command system, that is something that I'm having my incident response team learn. Is the way first responders manage disasters is what we're teaching our folks for managing cyber incidents, because they're very similar. At the same time, military is huge. There's a lot in terms of teamwork. There's a lot in terms of learning how to lead people and things like that. If you have a military or first responder background, you should prominently demonstrate that in your resume. Business or risk analysis is another great one. So, hey, if you've done analysis, if you've done research, if you were part of, mergers and acquisitions and you looked at other companies, that is a great transferable skill set into conducting investigations, into doing threat research, things like that. And then audit and legal, those are always great. Having audit experience allows you, especially from a programmatic standpoint, to understand what needs to be done as far as, getting everything in place for the program, all of our documentation, our processes, making sure that they're going to pass muster. That's huge. Legal, obviously, there's a huge legal aspect of cyber. So any experience in the legal field, very, very helpful. Again, this is by no means an exhaustive list. This is just AJ's thoughts on the matter. But if you have these sorts of skills, definitely highlight those when you're applying. Again, how to showcase your related talents. One, read that job description when you target those entry-level jobs. So back to that list of entry-level jobs, you found one. Read that job description very thoroughly. Read it a couple of times. Now, map your experience to those qualifications as much as you can. So, if they say, hey, you need to have experience, demonstrate that you have the ability to do this. Great. Okay. Let's say crisis management and, you're a former firefighter. Great. That's easy, right? Give me a hard one. But, really think about your experience as a whole, however much you have, whether it's a lot or a little, and map your experience to those qualifications as much as you can. And then fix your resume, update your resume before you apply to match that. Also, the cover letter is not dead. I will say that when I see a resume of a candidate who looks like they meet all the minimum criteria, if they have attached a cover letter, I will go ahead and read it at that point. Once I've determined they've met the minimum criteria. And then reinforce the connection between your experience and the qualifications in the job description during that interview. Make sure that you talk about that. Take that opportunity when the interviewer says, okay, tell me a little bit about you. Have a plan for how you're going to talk about your previous experience, how you're going to highlight the skills that you want that hiring manager to know about. And think about it from the hiring manager's perspective. Hey, okay, I'm hiring a SOC analyst. A SOC analyst, security operations center analyst, they're responsible for investigating alerts. They're responsible for potentially responding to incidents, yada, yada. Great. Show me all of your experience around, that would help with investigation, that would help with responding during a crisis, that would help with, developing documentation, things like that. And then, talk about that as much as you can during that interview. Now, here's the most important part: how to stand apart from other applicants. Again, I just mentioned it, but we're going to talk about it. Try to understand the result that that hiring manager or that employer is looking for by hiring that position. Positions become open in an organization because the organization needs to achieve a result, right? And it's about finding the right person who can achieve that result. If you can understand that result, hey, okay, they're hiring, again, to my example, they're hiring a SOC analyst. Great. The result is they need more help around, conducting cyber investigations, maybe reviewing phishing email, maybe doing e-discovery requests, what have you. The job description will have some clues. Try to figure out what that result is, and then focus your resume and your cover letter and what you talk about in your interview around how you align with those desired outcomes. Whatever that result is that they are seeking, try to make yourself look like that. Do not lie, though. That's the one thing I'm going to tell you. If you don't have the experience for something, you don't have the experience. Just be honest about that. I will say that, if you stretch the truth as far as your experience or background, or you fabricate something, that is instant disqualification. You will not hear from us again. That said, if you've got some related experience like we talked about, don't just think, oh, I have to have technical. No, there's other things that you could do that would make you an asset to achieving the result. So other things, attitude over aptitude. I will hire a good team player who's willing and able to learn, and they're often more valuable than an expert that's difficult to work with. Tons of experience, great, but if you're a pain and you can't work within the team that we're hiring you into, that's not going to work. Somebody who's a little more junior, who maybe doesn't have all of the experience we're looking for, but has the right attitude. We know they're going to work well in the team. We know that they're willing to go learn the things that they need to learn. I'm going to hire that person all day, every day. Practical experience versus theoretical knowledge. Nothing beats practical experience. In an outcome-focused role, what you can accomplish is way more important than your credentials. Like I talked about, there's a lot of ways to demonstrate competency. There's no one way to do so, but one thing that beats everything else is practical experience. And that's where getting started is the most important thing. Get an entry-level role and start gaining that practical experience, because that is what's going to lead to career success long-term. That's what's going to result in high salaries long-term, and things like that. Is once you are able to demonstrate, hey, in this role, I went and did this, I learned these things, we achieved these results. You do that a couple of times, and then you go apply for another job, and you're going to be at the top of the list. Ownership and self-motivation, huge. Again, as a hiring manager, I'm looking for individuals that are proactive, who want to solve problems rather than waiting for me to tell them what to go do about it. Would much rather empower my folks to go out and find the issues and solve them themselves. I will help, I will provide top cover, but I'm not there to tell them how to do it. And if, those skill sets are huge. These three things, massive differentiators between a lot of other people. It's difficult to show this on a resume, but at the same time, it's very important. When you get to that interview stage, when you get to that cover letter, things like that, this is where you want to show this off as much as you can. Just some other tips. When in doubt, apply anyway. You never know what that application, that pool of applicants looks like. And again, if you have the right attitude, that may be all it takes. Make use of recruiters and headhunters. They're great advocates. Give them your resume, they'll tune it up, they will submit you, they will hype you up even, especially if you have key skills that they're looking for. I will say your mileage will vary. There are good recruiters and there are bad recruiters. So ask them good questions and determine whether or not there's someone you want to work with. At the same time, they can expand your reach a lot. Be good at the basics. Show up to the interview early, dress appropriately, follow up promptly, the very basic things. Have your background set correctly. Don't have, if you've got a child, don't have them like climbing on you while you're in your interview, stuff like that. A little bit of prep work before the interview shows us, hey, okay, you know what you're doing, you understand what a professional environment is supposed to be. And then the big thing, don't hesitate to network and seek advice and find opportunities to shadow. Talk to people like me and others. Talk to people in the roles you want to have, you want to have one day and ask them how they got there. Talk to folks who are hiring managers and ask them, their advice as much as you can. Who knows? They may have an open position that might turn into a job interview if you're careful. So I'll say, hey, find me on LinkedIn. By all means, I am all about handing out advice, and I know there are a lot of others out there as well. So we are a little over time, so I'm gonna pass it back, and we'll get ready for some Q&A. I hope everyone has some great questions. Like I said, feel free to find me on LinkedIn, and good luck out there.
Thank you very much, AJ, for delivering such an insightful and informative session. We found the webinar very engaging and hope it was valuable for you as well.
Thanks.
So before we begin with the Q&A, I would like to inform all the attendees that this session is in sync with EC Council CCT program. CCT is an entry-level certification program by EC Council. This program provides multi-domain technical skills, 85 hands-on labs, has captured the flag exercises and performance-based exam delivered on a live cyber range. There are going to be 3.5 million cybersecurity job vacancies in the world by 2025. As a commitment to close the cybersecurity workforce gap by creating multi-domain cyber technicians, EC Council has pledged $7 million towards CCT education and certification scholarships to certify approximately 20,000 cyber professionals ready to contribute to the industry. If you're interested to know more, kindly participate in the poll that's going to be conducted now.
Wow, that's a heck of a resource.
Thank you, AJ. So AJ, should we proceed with the question and answers?
Let's do it.
Okay, so the first question is, can you tell what best certificates you recommend for senior professionals?
Oh, for senior professionals, there's a number of great certs out there. I would say, don't jump to the senior level certifications without doing the basics first. I see a lot people trying to come in and show cyber competency, so they pick the biggest, hardest cybersecurity certifications, and they jump straight from zero to that. Do some entry level ones first. EC Council has some great opportunities in like CEH if you're interested in the pen testing side of the house, CHFI if you're interested in the forensics and incident response side of the house. Certified incident handler is a great one. And kind of show, you want to tell a story with your certifications. And the story shouldn't be that I went out for the one that I see advertisements for, get this cert and get a six-figure job, because that just tells me, okay, great, you're just chasing the money. But if your certification is still a story, hey, I got some entry-level experience, and then I started to specialize down a path, that's a lot better story in terms of certification. So I would say it depends on what basic level certifications you have and then what you want to specialize in. If you don't have any basic level certifications, I would start there.
Thank you. Our next question is, what does the roadmap look like for someone who just started in DevOps and has a degree in software development?
Oh man, well, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could go, and again, it depends entirely on where you want to end up. What do you want to specialize in cybersecurity? Do you want to go that DevSecOps and stay kind of in the DevOps realm? If so, then it's time to learn some basic cybersecurity, maybe get some certifications, start specializing in DevSecOps, taking some training around it, and working your way into that. If you want to get away from software development and into other things, then it's time to target which area you want to break into, and then look for some training opportunities and some shadow opportunities on those other teams. If your company has those other teams, reach out to them and talk to those folks. But in terms of there's no one size fits all roadmap. There's a lot of different ways you can go. But DevOps is a great place to start from, because you've got a little bit of a bunch of different technical competencies that you can leverage.
Thank you, AJ. Next question is, quantum technology is changing everything. What are possible advantages for cybersecurity professionals with this kind of new technology?
Oh man, yeah, quantum is both changing everything and not changing everything. So, quantum offers some interesting things, especially in the world of cryptology and cryptography. Um, it's really going to change the way we handle encryption. There's post-quantum computing, and there's how we protect data in a post-quantum world is going to be different than the way we protect data today. Another thing that I'm predicting, and this is just AJ's opinion, but there's a lot of breach data out there that's currently encrypted, that's been stolen, but the attackers haven't been able to get to that data. Once quantum becomes available to threat actors, privately, with enough money, you're going to see new breaches that occurred years ago, where that old breach data is going to be decrypted with quantum technology, and it's going to create all kinds of new problems where we're going to have breaches that occurred, 7, 8, 10 years ago, but there's still some information in there that's maybe valid, and that's going to cause, I think, a new wave of issues. Hopefully we will have resolved things like identity protection and stuff like that by then, but if not, it's going to be a little painful. Learning and understanding quantum, especially quantum cryptography, is going to be very important. If you happen to be a quantum computer scientist, that is a probably very lucrative field already and will continue to be one.
Thank you so much, AJ. Our next question is, what are the prerequisites one needs to be aware of to be able to start solving capture the flag?
Well, it depends on the capture the flag. Generally, there are no prerequisites required for a capture the flag. I would recommend, if you have never done one before, one, do one. They are a great experience. And two, if you can, get in a team, and have some folks, get in with some folks who maybe know a little bit more and work with them until you learn the ropes. But typically, there's no prerequisite to join a capture the flag event. It's a great opportunity. The big thing with capture the flag is just, don't come in with the attitude of I'm going to win the capture the flag on your first one. Like, come in with the attitude I'm probably going to bomb, but I'm going to learn a bunch along the way. Typically, capture the flag events also offer hints. So they're really designed for different skill levels. And so I would say there are no prerequisites. Just do one. And see what happens, and just know that you're probably going to bomb, and that's okay. You will gain skills over time and just keep doing them. And if you can find a good team to join that will teach you some stuff along the way, that's great. But there's also all kinds of different capture the flags. There's some that are very network focused. There's some that are very application focused. There's some that are open source intelligence focused. So if you find one you didn't have fun, keep looking. There's others out there.
Thank you, AJ. Our next question is, what are the technical background knowledge to enhance vulnerability research or pen tester?
So in terms of technical background, that helps. Programming is not a bad one, because again, you're looking for vulnerabilities in software typically, or systems, but systems have software running on them. So some level of programming is definitely helpful. A good understanding if you want to do network-based pen testing, so live penetration testing across the wire, understanding how the network works, understanding how routers, switches, firewalls work, knowing that OSI model, maybe having a little bit of experience on the networking side, configuring some of those devices, all going to be very, very useful, along with a programming background. But the biggest prerequisite for that is just having some tenacity and a ton of curiosity. Enough curiosity that it outweighs the frustration when you can't get what you're looking for right away, because there's a lot of trying and failing and trying and failing and trying and failing to get to that aha moment. But But at the same time, I know folks who have had zero background in IT, zero background in cybersecurity, were working construction, and a year later they're a pen tester because they started doing captured flags, they started doing open source bug bounties, and then they found a job that was willing to give them a shot as an unproven pen tester, a junior pen tester, and give them the experience they needed to become a professional pen tester. Now they're one of the best ones in my company.
Thank you. We have received a lot of questions, AJ. So our next question for you is, what are the requirements to manage a SOC team or be a CISO?
Oh man, well, I'll start with the things that they have in common, or I'll focus on the things that they have in common. So any management, you need a lot of patience. You need to have good communication skills. You need to have a great deal of emotional intelligence, and you have to be fairly organized. I say that I'm not the most organized ever, but you have to be able to become fairly organized when necessary. Management is a lot different than the entry level. I tell people all the time, I said, I don't really do cybersecurity anymore. I mostly do PowerPoints. It's sort of a joke, it's sort of not. A lot of what I do is helping my team strategically in terms of, hey, we need to update plans, policies, and procedures. Hey, this is what we're gonna focus on for the next quarter. This is what we're gonna focus on for the next year. And then providing guidance to the managers to execute on that. And I'm not making those decisions myself. I'm working with the managers on my team. Together, we are charting the path for the team to say, okay, this is where we are. This is where we want to be. Here's how we want to get there. And then being flexible to deal with, changes, setbacks, things that you couldn't anticipate. Another one, especially on the SOC side, and it helps for CISO as well, is really being calm under pressure. When there is a cyber incident, typically the SOC managers are the ones who are thrust into the limelight and are going to be the ones doing the speaking about, this is what's happening, this is what we're doing about it. The CISO as well is going to be thrust in the limelight at the senior management level anytime there's a cyber concern. And so you're going to need to be able to be calm. You're going to need to be able to communicate with different stakeholders, some that are technical, some that are non-technical, and you're going to need to know how to strike that balance, which is going to be really important. That's the big thing, is being able to do that communication, especially to the non-technical audiences. So, talking to the technical folks, then breaking it down into normal speak and communicating that out effectively. And then a lot of what we're talking about when there's not an incident going on is we're talking in terms of risk. So being able to communicate risk effectively is very important, and that's really the CISO's primary role when there's not an incident going on, and saying, okay, here's the cyber risks to the company, here are the cyber risks to the company, here's what we're doing about it, here's what I need in order to continue to make progress in that way.
Thank you, AJ. Our next question is, most cybersecurity roles needs to know about AI or ML, or do they really?
This is kind of a personal point of angst for me. Do you need to be an expert in AI to be good at cybersecurity? No. Do you need to have an understanding of AI and how it works? To some degree, yes. But at the same time, the big thing, we have not seen a fundamental shift in the way we do cybersecurity as a result of AI. AI and ML have helped significantly in especially in cybersecurity tools, making our tools more effective, and things like that, which is great. But you don't need to understand the fundamentals. Like, you need to understand how the model works at a very technical level in order to be successful in deploying the tool and utilizing the tool. And most vendors out there provide the training you need to be successful. So as a cyber professional, I'd say keep up to date. do understand it, but at the same time, do you need to become an expert in AI? Do you need to write your own AI model or anything like that? No. You need to understand what is changing as a result of AI. What are we seeing in terms of threats? What are we seeing in terms of mitigations? And how is AI affecting threats and controls, essentially? And that's the level you need to understand that. But we haven't seen that fundamental shift in the way we do business caused by AI that a lot of people were talking about in years past.
Thank you. We'll take last two questions for the day. Our second last question is, what is the difference between security analyst and incident handler?
So it depends on the company. That's a great question, actually. It really depends on the company. So typically your incident handler is going to be a little bit more senior. It's going to be that you will start off as a security analyst. A security analyst is going to take an alert, some sort of security alert generated by a tool, and they're going to investigate it and determine, one, is this a true positive, or can it be explained by, some benign activity? And then two, what is the nature of the issue? Or, do we have an intrusion? What have you? They're going to do that first line analysis, and then if they find a problem, they're going to escalate. And if it ends up being something that we have to do something about, that's typically where an incident handler steps in. And that incident handler is going to say, okay, we have an intrusion. This is what we need to pull these teams together. This is what we need to do about it. We're going to execute these playbooks, which tell us what to do in terms of, how to quickly contain, eradicate, recover. How do we mitigate against this in the future? Things like that. So typically the difference is just experience. An entry level SOC analyst is not going to be asked to be an incident handler typically. That's typically going to be someone with a few, couple, 2-3 years of experience as an analyst who has now gotten a little bit of training as an incident handler as well. But it depends on the company. It depends on how big that team is. There's some organizations where the security team is just a handful of people, in which case you may find yourself the incident handler as well. Other companies that are bigger may have a dedicated role for the incident handler. It just depends.
Thank you. Our last question is, if someone wants to work hand in hand, being a pen tester and a threat vulnerability analyst, the relationship, can it go hand in hand?
To some degree. Again, it's going to depend on what organization you're working in. Where do you work? Are you going to be a freelance vulnerability researcher? In which case you can kind of do what you want, and how successful you are at finding vulnerabilities, participating in those bug bounty programs, things like that is going to determine how much you get paid. In a larger company, they may separate out vulnerability management and pen testing, and they may say, hey, this team is responsible for the vulnerability management. This team is responsible for pen testing. Typically, you're going to see that in larger companies because it's best practice. The reason it's best practice is there's a little bit of a conflict of interest. If your responsibility is to fix the vulnerabilities and your responsibility is to find the vulnerabilities, there's a concern that, over time you may say, well, I've looked for vulnerabilities and determined that I've fixed all of them. I've measured myself and determined I'm doing a good job, which is not a position you want to be in security. There's always trust but verify. So a lot of times those specialties are separated intentionally, so that, the one team is finding the vulnerabilities and saying these are the vulnerabilities that are present. Another team is responsible for managing those vulnerabilities, getting them fixed, et cetera. That way there's a check and balance.
Thank you so much to our wonderful speaker, AJ, for answering those questions and for the great presentation and the knowledge shared with our global audience. It was a pleasure to have you with us, and we are looking for more and more sessions with you. Before we conclude the webinar, AJ, would you like to give a small message to our audience?
Sure. I just thank you to everyone who listened. Thank you for your wonderful questions. Like I said before, feel free to add me on LinkedIn. This is a topic I'm very passionate about. Solving this cyber role gap is very important, and the best way to do that is to help as many people as possible get into the field, because it is absolutely worth it. And yeah, Thank you and have a wonderful week, folks. Good luck.
Thank you so much, AJ.
Thank you.